The cartels poisoning our communities aren't just smuggling drugs across the border. They have outsourced the cleanup of their billion-dollar cash piles to sophisticated Chinese financial networks. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're opening a file that reveals a direct financial and strategic alliance between transnational crime organizations in Mexico and, believe it or not, foreign state policies in Beijing.
It's a national security and economic threat, and it's one that's very different from what we've faced before.
Exactly. Our mission here is to trace this shocking connection. We're using sources like a recent FinCEN advisory, some congressional research on U.S. anti-money laundering law, and of course reports on the international fight against organized crime. Okay, let's unpack this.
We're talking about Mexico's largest cartels, CJNG, the Sinaloa cartel, and their partnership with what the U.S. Treasury calls Chinese money laundering networks, or CMLNs for short.
And the urgency for this deep dive, well, it couldn't be higher. This threat isn't just external anymore, is it? It's already inside.
It has absolutely infiltrated our highest levels of security. You have to get your head around the sheer scale of the money here. We saw a stark reminder of that in the breaking news from late 2025.
You're talking about the Paul Campo case.
The Paul Campo case. A man who was an executive at the Drug Enforcement Administration, a DEA executive.
For a quarter century.
For 25 years. And he was charged with agreeing to launder approximately $12 million.
$12 million?
For the CJNG. This is the kind of case that it rips the veil off. It exposes two things at once.
Yeah.
First, the overwhelming, just massive volume of cash these cartels are generating.
And second?
Second, the willingness of these groups to buy their way into our institutions. The Department of Justice confirmed it. CJNG is the main force behind countless drug-related deaths and security threats all across North America.
So $12 million, one alleged scheme, one former DEA official. It just underscores that this is not just some issue at the border.
No, it's an inside job. And it's all fueled by this overwhelming flood of dirty money.
And that flood is why these CMLNs are so powerful.
It's exactly why. The Treasury's 2024 assessment designated CMLNs as, and I'm quoting here, one of the most significant money laundering threat actors facing the entire U.S. financial system. This isn't just organized crime. It's an organized, high-speed, global financial attack.
Okay, so let's shift a bit. Let's look at the geopolitical forces that even created the demand for this alliance. Why did the cartels, who were pretty good at washing their own money before, suddenly need to bring in partners from China?
It was a perfect storm, really, a storm of regulations and cash volume. You have cartels like Sinaloa and CJNG who, for context, the president designated as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, in early 2025.
So we're talking about designated terrorists.
Yes, and they functionally control almost all the illegal traffic coming across our border. They are sitting on, literal mountains of dirty U.S. dollars generated right here in America.
A mountain of cash is a liability if you can't spend it. So why not just bribe their way through the Mexican banking system? $4,000 a month sounds like a low hurdle for a billion-dollar operation.
You'd think so, but the restrictions Mexico put in place were aggressive.
Yeah.
They were systemic. Starting back in 2010, Mexico enacted these really strict currency controls.
Limiting U.S. dollar deposits.
Severely limiting them. An individual was generally restricted to depositing only $4,000 US a month into a Mexican bank.
Wow.
For a financial operation running on hundreds of millions, that restriction. It's like trying to drain a swimming pool with a pea cup. It created an immediate massive liquidity crisis for them.
$4,000 a month. That completely crippled their traditional methods. They had to find partners who could move cash in bulk quickly, and this is the key, without physically moving the cash across the border.
And that's where China comes in.
Yeah.
This is the other half of the relationship. What's fascinating here is that a policy from the People's Republic of China, one designed to keep money in China,
inadvertently created the perfect tool for the cartels.
You've got it, the PRC's capital controls.
Right.
Around 2016, the PRC tightened its laws. They capped how much currency Chinese citizens could convert and move internationally at about $50,000 a year.
$50,000 for a wealthy Chinese citizen or business? That's nothing.
It's nothing. It immediately drove this immense demand for U.S. dollars outside of Beijing's control. They needed a black market.
So wait a minute. Are you saying that Beijing's policy, a policy designed to keep their own money from leaving, is accidentally the single biggest factor fueling transnational organized crime right here in the U.S.?
It created the demand. Precisely. The CMLNs exploit it. They get the cartel's dirty USD here in America,
Yeah.
and they sell it at a premium to wealthy Chinese citizens who need to move their capital.
And those citizens pay the CMLN in Chinese currency in China.
In RMB, in China, the CMLNs make their big profit from the high rate they charge those citizens.
Ah, that's the genius of it. Because their profit comes from the Chinese side, they can offer the cartels a much cheaper, faster money laundering rate than anybody else.
In effect, the Chinese government's strict controls indirectly subsidize the cost of cleaning U.S. drug money for the FTOs operating on our border. It made the cartel's operations faster, cheaper, and a whole lot safer.
So now that we get the economics, let's look at the mechanics. How is this dirty cash moved around the globe in near real time, often without ever hitting a wire transfer?
They use a method called mirror transactions.
Okay, break that down for us.
Mirror transactions rely on something called an informal value transfer system. In this case, it's often the Chinese underground banking system, or CUBS.
It's like an underground Venmo for criminals.
That's a great way to put it. It's decentralized, unregulated, and almost instant. It's genius for crime because you eliminate the physical risk of smuggling bulk cash across the border, which, as ICE points out, is usually how they prefer to do it.
So walk me through it. The cartel has a pile of cash in, say, a warehouse in an American city. How does it become usable pesos in Mexico almost instantly?
Okay, so the process starts when a U.S.-based CMLN operator physically picks up the cartel's bulk cash. Let's say it's $500,000.
Right.
That operator immediately notifies their partner in Mexico. Almost simultaneously, the Mexico-based CMLN operator transfers the equivalent amount in Mexican pesos minus their fee straight into the cartel's account in Mexico.
The transaction is mirrored. No cash crossed the border. The physical $500,000 is still in the U.S., but the cartel has its clean money in Mexico instantly.
Exactly. And FinCEN notes they're also using convertible virtual currency more and more for these transfers, which just adds more speed and anonymity.
Okay, so now the CMLN has all this physical cash in the U.S. The next step is getting it into our financial system without raising red flags. Who are the foot soldiers doing this, the money mules?
They're individuals, recruited by the CMLNs. They're the physical conduit for the cash. Often they'll use counterfeit Chinese passports, fake IDs, to open accounts at U.S. banks.
And what do they put on the paperwork?
Low-income jobs, student, housewife, laborer, occupations that just wised. They do not match the massive amounts of cash they're depositing.
Which leads to smurfing, right? The classic technique to stay under the radar.
Smurfing or structuring. You break up huge sums into a bunch of smaller deposits, specifically to stay under that $10,000 currency transaction reporting requirement that flags the banks.
But they don't always bother with that, do they?
Not always. Our sources show they frequently just deposit large, unstructured sums and buy cashier's checks made payable to shell companies or even real estate firms.
So what happens to the clean cash? It's not just sitting there.
No, it's immediately put to work in high-value American assets. And this is where it really hits home for you, the listener. The CMLNs use this laundered cash, the direct proceeds from fentanyl sales, to buy U.S. real estate.
For their wealthy, China-based clients.
As a stable investment for them, yes.
So fentanyl profits are being used to drive up the cost of real estate in places like Phoenix or Miami or Vancouver.
That is the direct economic consequence. It's not just a foreign crime. It is directly impacting the cost of living in American communities.
And it's not just real estate.
No. They also used what's called trade-based money laundering, or TBML. This is a scheme to disguise the crime as legitimate commerce. CMLNs use the drug money to buy U.S. luxury goods, electronics, phones, designer handbags.
And then they ship them overseas?
They export them, often to China, Mexico, or the UAE. The value is transferred internationally, and the criminal origin is completely masked. It's an incredibly sophisticated global system.
The threat is clear. These CMLNs are unlicensed money transmitters operating illegally on our soil, powering designated foreign terrorist organizations. But we do have weapons to fight back. Let's look at the enforcement hammer the U.S. can use.
Our financial system is guarded by some powerful laws. We rely heavily on financial institutions doing their part strict know your customer practices and submitting suspicious activity reports, or SARs.
And FinCEN is actively pointing them in the right direction here. They asked institutions to reference CMLN 2025 A0003, when filing SARs, right?
Yes, that's like a battlefield designation. It standardizes the data, it streamlines the investigation across all these different agencies.
And beyond the regulations, there are criminal laws.
Oh, absolutely. We have the Kingpin Act. It allows the U.S. to freeze the assets of anyone who materially assists or provides financial support for designated narcotics traffickers.
Which targets the CMLNs directly?
It hits them right where they live. They are the financial engine for the CJNG and Sinaloa cartels.
So let's talk penalties. If you get caught doing this, what statutes does the DOJ use?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the penalties are severe. The core statute is 18 U.S.C. Section 1956. The main money laundering law,
And that covers.
it covers two key activities: promotional laundering, which is using dirty money to promote more crime, and concealment laundering, hiding where the money came from.
And the penalties are extreme.
They are designed to be devastating. We're talking up to 20 years in prison and fines up to $500,000 or, and this is a kicker, twice the value of the property involved.
Twice the value. That's a penalty aimed at wiping out the entire criminal infrastructure.
Absolutely. Then you have the money spending statute, 18 U.S.C., Section 1957. That's simpler but powerful. It prohibits spending or depositing more than $10,000 of money from a crime.
And that one carries, what, 10 years?
Up to 10 years in prison, yes. That's what hits the mules themselves.
But the ultimate consequence, the real hammer, has to be forfeiture. Asset confiscation?
That's the ultimate deterrent. The government can seize property involved in the offense. And that's a crucial word. It's not just the dirty cash.
It's anything traceable to the scheme.
Exactly. The bank accounts, the cars, and most critically, the U.S. real estate bought by the CMLNs for their clients. The government isn't just taking the chips off the table, they're taking the entire table.
And we've seen this hammer drop on major banks before, right? The Wachovia case.
That's a stark example of institutional liability. Wachovia forfeited $110 million and paid another $50 million in fines.
And that wasn't for actively laundering money, was it?
No, it was for knowingly processing illicit funds and willfully failing to have an adequate anti-money laundering program. That case sent a message. If you let these networks use your rails, you become complicit in the destruction caused by these FTOs.
So this deep dive, it really shows that fighting the cartels, it's not just about seizures at the border anymore. This is a full-scale battle against international economic sabotage.
It is. The CMLNs give these TCOs speed, security, a way to bypass international laws. It directly links the drug crisis in our streets to the financial policies of Mexico and the PRC regime.
Which raises an important question for you, the listener, and for our policymakers. The cartels are designated FTOs, and they're being empowered by foreign networks operating illegally in every major U.S. city.
So, given our laws that allow for freezing assets and confiscating property for promoting crime, should the strategic focus be shifted?
The debate isn't border versus financial enforcement. It's about which strategy actually decapitates their treasury.
Right. If the CMLNs are the single point of financial failure for the cartels, why are they still operating with such impunity on our soil? That's the strategic shift we need to consider. Less focus on enforcement statistics and a much more aggressive focus on dismantling the global financial mechanism that keeps these terrorist organizations running. Dismantling their treasury, that's the only path to a long-term victory.